This podcast is made possible by audibletrial.com. If you've never tried Audible, you should give it a try and listen to your first book for free. We've arranged a deal with Audible. Just go to audibletrial.com/bmshow. audibletrial.com/bmshow. You can check out a book, listen to it absolutely free. It will literally change your life. It allows you to basically listen to a book anywhere you are, no matter what. Driving to pick up the kids, driving to work, going on a trip, taking your lunch break, laying in bed at night, trying to fall asleep. It's all the joys of reading a book without actually having to read. Try your first book from Audible for free. audibletrial.com/bmshow. audibletrial.com/bmshow.
He's opinionated. He's unapologetic. He's always real. He is Brett Mason. This is the Brett Mason Show.
As you may have surmised from the name of the show, I am Brett Mason. This is actually the Liberty Report with Brett Mason. However, it's too expensive to get the voice talent to cut new sweepers. Welcome into the show. I am a highly passionate political person. I'm really concerned about freedom and liberties primarily. I feel that I probably more closely mimic the thoughts and feelings of our founding fathers than I do most people in today's politics. I am a small L libertarian. While not officially a part of the big L Libertarian Party, I do hold dear the principles of libertarianism, which basically boil down to give me the maximum amount of freedom possible, please. Thank you very much. And so we tend to look at everything happening with the country and the world of politics through that libertarian lens, if you will. So we're going to cover a couple of things that happened in the most recent Republican debates that happened on Fox Business. The clips that we will be airing in the show today came from that debate on the Fox Business Network. The first one, I think, is a glaring example of how Jeb Bush isn't a conservative. I guess you can call him a Republican because Republicans aren't really conservative anymore. So technically, he does fall under the category of Republican. The man definitely isn't a conservative, and he's light years away from being a libertarian. So they were asking about tax policies and just a general note on tax policies, a broad overview before we get to this clip from Jeb Bush. I think most of the plans that the Republican candidates are putting forward are good. Jeb's, I think, is the most convoluted and continues to cling on that reward thing where you reward people and you have the ability to reward people. And I don't like that. That's what stacks the deck in certain people's favor. And who's people and who are the people who get the deck stacked in their favor? Well, it's probably going to be lobbyists. It's going to be big business. It's going to be people who can get the ear of the president or ear of a congressman. I can tell you in my years on the planet, I've never really been able to get the ear of either of those people. So I doubt seriously that the little perks that come along with being able to manipulate a tax code are going to help me all that much, despite what we hear them say. What we hear them say and what bears itself out in reality are too often completely different things. My big concern with their tax policies are, and they range from everything from the Jesus tax, which according to Ben Carson would be somewhere between 10 and 15%. I think Huckabee's have proposed a retail consumption tax, which honestly I'd be fine with. Fiorina, I believe, is proposing a 3-page tax code, which I think is something similar to a flat tax. We have several of them offering a tax plan that would abolish and eliminate the need for an IRS, which of course I'm fully in favor of. The thing that none of these people answer, and they can't answer it because they can't do it. Their tax codes look great. Look, I would take any one of their tax codes over what we have today. In a heartbeat, I would, no matter who it is. You take any of those Republican candidates. If you told me that, and just present me with any candidate, I don't care the name, here. If you give me a thumbs up, we will implement their tax code immediately. I would give you a thumbs up, and I don't care which one of the candidates it is. It would be better than what we have today. The problem is that there's no way in hell they can ever make those things happen. It's just stuff they put on their website. It sounds good to use in debates. They can use it on stump speeches, but they will never get these tax codes change. They're never going to abolish the IRS. They're never going to abolish the current tax system, and they're never going to implement a new tax system. The reason I can say that is because none of them can articulate how they would get this done. Unless you're going to use the Trump adage of, well, I'll just get it done because I'm great at getting stuff done. I need a little bit better answer than that. So, I'm in favor of all there. I would take any one of them's tax scheme over the current tax scheme. Hands down. Yes, please. But we need a dose of reality. None of them are going to get these tax plans implemented. As a matter of fact, if you go back for I don't know how many of the past elections we've had, there's talks of this on both sides. Nothing ever changes. As a matter of fact, the only thing that changes is the tax code gets more complicated. The middle class and working people get punished the worst, and people who have the ears of the politicians get rewarded, and that's just the way it works. All right, on with that. On to the Jeb Bush clip. I'm going to play this clip for you, and he's talking about how his tax plan would help. He named some people specifically. I know one of them's name was Reagan Love because he seemed to think that was a great name. But he gave those in his example, and his tax code, I think, would put $2,400 a year back in their pocket. And he said that he'd talk to them, and what they would do would be take that $2,400 and start a business. First of all, I'd like to know what business they're starting for $2,400. Sign me up for that. But second of all, he went on to say that imagine if everybody benefited from his $2,400 and they all went and started new businesses, how quick the economy would boom. And if that would happen, look, I have no quarrel with that. It would be great if we could get everybody with an extra $2,400 to dump it into starting a business. I think that'd probably be great. Most of them would fail. It's pretty hard to start a business with $2,400. But some of them would succeed, and that'd probably be good for the economy. My problem was something else that he said in his statement, and I'll leave it to you to see if you can pick up on it. So listen very carefully, and then we will review as soon as this clip is over.
Imagine what it would be like instead of having more businesses closed than started. We had the exact opposite. We would grow our economy, and the government would get the revenue necessary to make things better.
I'm sorry, Jeb. What did you say?
And the government would get the revenue necessary to make things better.
All right. Let's repeat that one more time. What'd you say there, Jeb?
And the government would get the revenue necessary to make things better.
So Jeb Bush's great plan is to tweak the world's most complicated tax code just enough that you get a paltry $2,400 back in your bank account every year. You take that $2,400 and start a business. Again, I'd like to know what business you're starting for $2,400. It'd have to be an internet business. There are some internet businesses that you could attempt for $2,400. That'd be about it. And that will improve the economy. More tax revenues will start coming in. That'll send more tax revenues to the federal government and give the federal government the ability to, quote unquote, make things better. I don't want a president who thinks giving the government more tax revenues will give the government the ability to make things better. The government has never one time in the history of all recorded governments from any world, any nation, in any time period, you name it, ever made anything better. I'd like to know one thing the government has ever made better. One thing. Jeb Bush is a liberal. He's much like W was. W was kind of straightforward about when he ran for office. Of course, he spoke with a lot of bravado. He apparently had no problem invading foreign countries. But on matters of even immigration, he was a little bit liberal. On matters of fiscal, economic policy, taxes, he was a little bit liberal. He had some liberal old things. And I think those are the things that kind of helped him win. He had just enough of that it made some of the swing voters kind of swing in his favor. I think Jeb is worse. Whatever small portions of W were liberal, I think you can probably triple or quadruple that for Jebediah. I don't want a president who wants to increase the amount of money that the government gets in taxes, not by raising taxes. Now, granted, he doesn't want to raise taxes. He wants to make taxes lower so that we get more people building businesses, and we, increase the GDP to the point that there's just so much money being made, it just naturally increases taxes. All right, I don't have a problem with that. We could try that if you think it'd work. I hear a lot of people say that. Very few people really understand what it takes to pull something like that off. But what I don't want to hear is you saying that the government is going to take all that extra money and make things better. The government isn't going to make anything better. Give it back to the people. The people are the people that make things better. People who get out there and risk their blood, sweat, tears, capital, savings, 401ks. Put it all on the line because they have a dream, because they have an idea, because they have a solution to a problem, because they have a vision for the future, and they're willing to risk everything to make it happen. Those are the people that make things better. I would rather be poked in the leg with a hot branding iron than vote for Jeb Bush. It just ain't ever going to happen. With that being said, let's move on to our newest victims. Marco Rubio and Rand Paul had to tangle up, and it came in the form of questions about the earned income tax credit. For people who are educated on these type issues, for people who understand the vernacular, I thought Rand Paul did an excellent job of pointing out why Marco Rubio is not a conservative. And I thought he did a great job of pointing out what's wrong with this tax credit. But he uses words that the average person doesn't understand. And it bothers me when the average person watching a debate does not know what an expenditure is. I could poll everybody that I know today. I could take all my friends, family, relatives, and I'm not talking bad about them. I'm not saying any of them are stupid. These are just words they don't use in ordinary life. People I know, even me, I don't use the word expenditure. These are just words we don't use. We don't ever use the word expenditure. I don't know anybody that uses the word expenditure. And so that's one of the failings, I think, of Rand Paul. Is I've noticed that in several debates, he uses words that are correct and they have the correct meaning. And if you understand them, he brilliantly points out the flaws of the other person that he's debating with. But nobody, I can't say nobody, but I would think probably a small percentage of the people watching know what the hell he's talking about. Nevertheless, Marco Rubio, strong for families. Me strong for family like Tarzan and Jane. And the way he wants to be strong for families is by giving them money that isn't theirs. That's what the tax credit is. It's not a tweaking of the code so that you pay less taxes, as Rand Paul so perfectly points out, even though probably most people didn't understand it. This tax credit takes money that you never paid, and it takes it away from other people like me who have no children. I made the choice to have no children. It punishes me and takes some of my tax money and gives it to you in the form of a tax credit because you got knocked up. It's the least conservative, least liberty-minded, least American thing you could possibly do, and Marco Rubio is proud of it, as he states in this clip.
The most important job I'm ever going to have, the most important job anyone in this room will ever have, is the job of being a parent. And so, yes, I have a child tax credit increase, and I'm proud of it. I am proud that I have a pro-family tax code, because the pro-family tax plan I have will strengthen the most important institution in the country, the family.
Neil, there's a point I'd like to make here. Neil, a point that I'd like to make about the tax credits. We have to decide what is conservative and what isn't conservative. Is it fiscally conservative to have $1 trillion expenditure? We're not talking about giving people back their tax money. He's talking about giving people money they didn't pay. It's a welfare transfer payment.
I'm going to stop right there. I really wish he would have used the right phrase. Republicans would have understood if he had used the phrase redistribution of wealth. Because that's what it is. It's a redistribution of wealth. It takes money that I made, because I don't have kids. It takes money of other people who either don't have kids or they have got their kids grown and out and they're not dependents anymore. It punishes all of us because we aren't currently raising kids. And what it does is it says, look, you've claimed your deductions or whatever, and we get your tax as low as it is. Now on top of that, we're going to give you a credit. In other words, We're going to take and pay you money from other people that's not a deduction from your taxes. Please don't see, that's where the problem comes in. People don't understand that. This isn't a tax deduction. It doesn't lessen the taxes that you pay. It actually takes money from other taxpayers and hands it to you in form of a payment. Congratulations. We're going to pay you some money because you got pregnant, because you're raising a family. And we're going to pull it from Jim Bob and Bobby Sue and Martha and Enid and these people because they don't have children. They're not raising children right now. You hit the I had a child lottery. It's a redistribution of wealth. It's the most conservative, un-American thing possible. Continue, Rand.
So here's what we have. Is it conservative to have $1 trillion in transfer payments, a new welfare program that's a refundable tax credit?
So just to be clear, the way this tax credit works, it works just like welfare. It is the exact same thing as taking money that I make. And this is what Republicans, quote unquote, get outraged about. We take money from hardworking people and we just write a check to welfare recipients. People who aren't working. And that drives Republicans insane, drives conservatives insane. This is the exact same thing. The only difference is you're handing it to people with babies. Oh, you got a baby? Here's your check. Oh, you got 2 kids? Here, have a check courtesy of Brett Mason. He ain't got no kids.
Add that to Marco's plan for $1 trillion in new military spending, and you get something that looks to me not very conservative.
And while I commend Rand Paul on sticking to his core, he lost every Republican watching that debate right there. Oh, that's the sacred cow is the military. He's an isolationist. He wants the country to be attacked by ISIS. He wants us to all die at the hands of a terrorist explosive. And he lost them. Because you can't be in the Republican Party and even for a fraction of a second suggest that maybe our military spending isn't in line, that maybe there's a better way. You instantly lose all Republicans when you do that.
First of all, this is their money. They do pay. It is refundable, not just against the taxes they pay to the government, but also on their federal income tax. It's refundable against the payroll tax. Everyone pays payroll tax. This is their money. This is not our money.
Now, people that are fans of tax credits would say things like this. Oh, it's not a redistribution of wealth. It's not a handout because you're required to work to get it. And that's true. You are required to do a basic minimum amount of work. And to its credit, which isn't saying much, but you earn a little bit more, you get a little bit better. You earn a little bit more, you get a little bit better. And that's up till you hit a ceiling and then suddenly you make too much. And that's why they say it's not welfare, because you have to work to earn it. But just because you have to work to earn it doesn't mean that it isn't money you didn't earn. It credits you back above and beyond anything you earned or any amount of taxes that you would have paid. It is a redistribution of wealth from other people's pockets to yours.
And here's what I don't understand. If you invest that money in a piece of equipment, if you invest that money in a business, you get to write it off your taxes. But if you invest it in your children, in the future of America, in strengthening your family.
Whoa. So you're telling me that if I have a kid, I ought to be able to write it off on my taxes just like if I have a business that employs 1,000 people and I buy a copy machine so they can get work done, which causes us to generate revenue and pay all those people's salaries, increase the workforce, increase the GDP of the nation. Are you being serious right now? Having a baby is nothing like running a business and needing to buy 5 desktop computers and writing them off as a business. That's the craziest, most ludicrous thing I've ever heard. You're really making me regret the decision that I made in life to not have children. You're really making me regret that decision. I should have went and got a bunch of people pregnant so I could claim them as a business deduction.
We're not going to recognize that in our tax code. The family is the most important institution in
Nevertheless,
society.
it's not
and yes,
very
I do want to rebuild the
Marco.
American
How's
military.
it conservative?
I know that Rand is a committed isolationist. I'm not. I believe the world is a stronger and a better place when the United States is the strongest military power in the world.
Okay, first of all, I don't know where you get any facts or figures that says that the economy is greater when our military is the greatest in the world. But either way, I'm all for having a strong military and defense. We already have the world's #1 military. We already have the world's number. You act like we're struggling in the military department. You act like we have the worst military in the world. It's not true. We have the most powerful, most well-manned, most well-armed military in the entire world already. already. We already got that. I think suggestion that we maybe spend more wisely is not that ridiculous of an idea, you moron.
Marco, how is it conservative? How is it conservative to add $1 trillion expenditure for the federal government that you're not paying for?
Okay, watch what happens here. The expenditure he's talking about now is the tax credit. That's where they take money out of your pocket and write somebody else a check. That's the expenditure he's talking about. Watch how Marco instantly flips it around to talk about the military again for red meat.
How is it conservative? How is it conservative to add $1 trillion in military expenditures?
So Rubio jumped in there wanting to go, oh, yeah, it's the military, Rand. And then Rand Paul went on to add the military expenditures. It's a secondary. We have expenditures for this tax credit. And then on top of that, you have this excessive military spending, which is even more expenditures. But watch how Rubio takes it. That's what Rubio wants to do, is make it all about the military, because that's Republican red meat, baby.
You cannot be a conservative if you're going to keep promoting new programs that you're not going to pay for.
I may respond more quickly. Very quickly, Senator.
So I'm not going to play Marco Rubio's follow-up response because they got in this argument with Kasich and they tried to move on and it evolved at that point. Rand Paul defended this issue very well. But I'm convinced that he used phrases that the average person doesn't understand. I'm not being derogatory or defamatory towards people. It's just people don't use expenditures in everyday life. People don't necessarily understand the definition of tax credits and how they work. I mean, all these things, I really wish Rand would do a little bit better job. And look, I'm in no way stumping for Rand. I have big issues with Rand. But on this issue, Rand Paul was dead on. I wish he was better at using layman's terminology so that the average Billy, Jim, Betty, Sue, Bob, whoever sitting on their couch would go, yeah, that's redistribution of wealth. But, I think he missed the mark on that a little bit. Nevertheless, it's just more proof that the Republican Party is mainly made up of people who like to spend money. They just like to spend it in different places. They'll bash the Democrats for trying to take care of a woman who can't get a job, who's trying to raise 2 kids, as being, taking my money and giving it to drug sniffing women who's always having babies. But then when the Republican does the same thing, I'm going to take money and I'm going to give it to this woman because she had 2 kids. Well, then that's family values then. When the Republicans do it, it's family values. When the liberals do it, it's redistribution of wealth. It's all terminology. It goes all the way back to that words. Whatever words you say frames the discussion. And you can win any debate. You can win any philosophical discussion if you win the war of words. And the Republicans are very good at twisting words. It's redistribution of wealth. If I help a woman who can't get a job, who has some children, she's struggling to feed them, we give them a little WIC, we give them a little welfare incentive, hopefully help the woman get back on her feet. And look, I'm not saying that the welfare system is out of control, because it is. Remember, I'm a libertarian. The government shouldn't have money to give away. The government shouldn't be that big. So trust me, I'm against all this giving away of money, but this system's already in place. The liberals do it. Comes from the liberal side mainly. And the Republicans bash it as redistribution of wealth. And on the other hand, the Republicans do the exact same thing. They just tweak slightly the person that's getting it. It's still not a refunding of their tax money. Make no mistake, that tax credit is not a refunding of money you paid. It's beyond the taxes that you paid and the reduction of those taxes. This is an actual check written to you above and beyond any of that in the form of a tax. It's a payment. It's a redistribution of wealth. It's the same thing welfare is. It's identical to welfare with the one caveat is that you got to work to earn it. Now, I understand that to some people that's a big caveat. It may be to you, it may be to somebody else. I'm sorry, as a libertarian and a person who believes in small government, limited government, and maximum amount of freedom, no, it's taking money away from somebody and giving it to somebody else. I don't care that you have a baby. I wasn't involved in you having a baby. There's plenty of information out there on how to not have a baby until you're ready. As a matter of fact, healthcare requires now that your contraceptives be a part of your insurance plan. There's just no reason for having a baby until you're ready. You can't support a baby? Don't have one. You don't have the money for a baby? Don't have one. You're not in a financial situation to raise children? Don't have them. How do I know that it can be done? Because I'm 45 years old and I've never had a child. I've never once had a child in 45 years of living on this planet. Now understand, we're going to subtract a bunch of those years because I wasn't really in a position to bear, to have children. I was going to say bear children. That'd be a nice trick. I didn't really come into the child spawning stage until I was 12 or 13. I don't know how old you or how young you can be and technically have children, but at some point I did. And at some point I began putting myself in situations that could potentially lead to children. And I made the choice to not have any children. So when you whine and cry to me and tell me that you accidentally had a child, I'm going to tell you, it's only about 1/1000th or something of 1% of people that use birth control in the right way that actually wind up having a child. It's an infinitesimally small number. It just doesn't happen. So meanwhile, you're out there, you had your kid. I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't get and participate in any of the joyous part of it. None of it was fun for me like it was, and whoever your partner, I'm sure y'all had a blast conceiving that child. I didn't get nothing out of it. I don't want to pay for it. I don't want to write you a tax credit because you got children. You should have decided that before you had kids. With great maximum freedom becomes responsibility. Don't tell me you want freedom if you don't want the responsibility. And the responsibility lays upon your shoulders to not have children until you're able to have them. Well, I really wanted a kid, though. I really wanted to have a baby. That's the American way, is to raise a family. And I just wasn't financially ready, but I really wanted a baby anyway. Too bad. That's the decision. It's the same argument that Republicans make about women who have children out of wedlock and their own welfare. It's the same argument. You're like, why they keep having them kids? We ought to give them some. We ought to make them be had their tubes tied. We ought to make them women have them tubes tied. I'm tired of paying for their children. It's the same thing. Whether it's a woman that doesn't have any job and she's down her luck having kids, or whether it's this nice suburban Republican woman having kids, it's the exact same thing. You're taking money out of my pocket. You're writing a check to them and going, congratulations, you had a child. Here's $500. You just hit the I had a baby jackpot. And I hate to keep laying it at the woman. I know it's going to sound that way, but it's not how I mean it. It takes two. The responsibility falls on both of them. It's the man's problem and it's the woman's problem. It's up to y'all. Y'all had the youngin'. Y'all figure out how to pay for it. If you can't pay for it, let's turn it over for a service. Put it up for adoption. There's a lot of people out there with a lot of money that can take care of your baby. You too broke? Look, does that sound harsh? Do I sound like a harsh person? I don't mean to sound like a harsh person. What would I rather do? Support your child for you, or have you put it up for adoption to somebody that can pay for it? You're saying I'm harsh because I don't want to pay for your baby? You're saying I'm harsh because I've managed to go my whole life and not produce a child because I didn't want to, because I was never in a position to be ready, and I made that decision and I should be punished by having to pay for your kid? No. There's people out there that can raise your kid, loving families with lots of money. They'd love to raise your kid. You ain't able to do it? Put it up for adoption. Is that heartbreaking to you? I'm sorry. I didn't put you in that position. Now, you want some temporary assistance? See, I'm more on the side of the welfare. And I'm not on either side. I don't believe in somebody taking my money and giving it away, but I'm more on the side of welfare. At least in that situation, it's a person who was working feasibly, if it works correctly. Now, it's somebody who was in a position to take care of their business and they've fallen on hard times. The job cut back. There was reductions at the workplace because of the economic situations, and suddenly I'm without a job. I need help taking care of my kid. I didn't plan on being it. Well, let's step in and help you. Let's help you get through this time in your life. I'm all for that. I'm not all for you're in a position to let's just have babies and keep working and collect checks from other people's pocket. I don't want to pay for your baby. If I wanted to pay for a baby, I would have a baby of my own. If I were in a position to raise a child, I would just have one. Not only would I have one, I'd get me a tax credit from other people that didn't have one. Oh, God, Brett Mason has gone off the deep end. He's angry. I'm not angry. I'm just sick of the hypocrisy. Welfare is welfare. You can't have Republican welfare and be happy about it and diss liberal welfare. If you're a fan of welfare, be a fan of welfare. Stop being so full of hypocrisy over the whole thing. It turns my stomach. It makes me want to puke.
Love him or hate him, you know what you're going to get. This is the Brett Mason Show. You can subscribe to the podcast, download the free smartphone app, and find more ways to connect to the show at brett-mason.com/connect.